On Mother's Day, I brought Mom flowers, her favorite perfume, and a heartfelt handwritten letter. But she dumped everything in a trash bag. This year, I hoped things would be different. Not perfect, not outstanding, but softer. I'm not sure why. Perhaps because I had been working so hard. I had not had time to overthink it. Or maybe it was because I had recently assisted her with her taxes, and she truly said thank you, which did not sound forced. Or because when I texted her last week to confirm brunch, she responded with a smile. Not an emoji, but a colon and parentheses. Old school, familiar, like when she texted me in middle school, before everything changed. So, yeah, I gave myself hope. I got her favorite perfume, the one she used to wear as a child and called me love in public. I got fresh flowers from a local shop, not the grocery store. And I spent literally hours on a handwritten letter. This isn't your typical Hallmark thanks for everything card. I told her that I understood things hadn't always been easy, that I respected all she sacrificed for me, and that I still loved her, even if she didn't always seem to want me around. It wasn't desperate, just honest. I convinced myself that brunch may be a reset, a way back in. She had me when she was just out of high school. For very some time, it was just us, messy, yet close. Then when I was 10, Mom met Jake, her current husband. He was decent at first, quiet and practical. I thought I could be gaining someone. I hadn't realized I was about to disappear. When the baby arrived, my half-brother Zach, I became more of a reminder of her past than her son. And Jake? Jake preferred a clean slate, a nuclear family. You could feel it in the way Dad always said our boy, but never referred to me as his stepson. Unless someone specifically inquired. But I remained hopeful. Because sometimes your need to be wanted outweighs all of the reasons you should know better. So when I arrived at the house that morning with gifts in my hands, I felt happy. Nervous, yes, but also proud. I felt like I was showing up as an adult, someone worth having at the table. The house looked great. She goes all out for occasions. Mimosas, cloth napkins, and proper place cards. Pinterest energy. When I walked in, she looked up from the table. "Oh, you made it," she replied. And for half a second, I thought she meant it. That perhaps this was it. Perhaps I had finally done something correctly. I handed her the flowers and perfume. She examined the bottle as if it were a receipt she didn't recall authorizing. "Oh, you remembered this one," she remarked. Not warm, only witnessed. I didn't let it get to me. "Yeah," I smiled. "They only had one left." She nodded, already returning to the table. My half-brother Zach was talking about dorm life and how his economics professor resembles a person who has never paid rent. Everyone laughed. I sat down. My place setting included a folded napkin but no card. Nobody had saved me a mimosa. It was fine. I poured juice for myself, like a responsible adult. Jake asked how things were going at work and then turned away before I could finish answering. My mother was fixing the centerpiece. Zach passed the salt to me without looking. This was not new. But today, for whatever reason, it felt heavier. Perhaps because I had tried this time. Maybe because the letter was still in my jacket pocket and I was wondering when to give it to her. I had sealed it in a crimson envelope. Even used a decent pen. "Does anyone want more coffee?" I offered. My mother did not hear me, or she claimed not to. Halfway through lunch, my brother gave me a smirk. "So, do you enjoy celebrating Mother's Day from a distance now? Or is this a charitable visit?" Jake laughed. My mom said nothing. She simply sipped her drink. I smiled as if nothing bothered me, saying, "Well, I didn't bring a coupon, but I did bring a gift." My brother grinned. "Cool. Did you send it to her via Venmo like last year?" "Nope," I replied. "This year it's actually in writing." I stood up, removed the letter from my pocket, and placed it next to her dish. The red envelope stood out like blood on a white tablecloth. She looked at it as if I had just delivered her a court summons. Then my brother snorted. "Do you write her a love letter or something?" "Jesus, no," I replied, still smiling. "Just a thank you." The table fell silent for a moment. Then someone asked for the butter. After brunch, I helped to clean the plates. I was halfway to the kitchen with a stack when I realized the garbage bags had already been brought to the garage. We had barely completed our meal. Maybe she was simply being efficient. She preferred a tidy environment. I went outside to trash the napkins. The garage door was half open, and the sun was just bright enough to illuminate the bins heaped toward the back wall. And there, leaning against a black trash bag, I noticed it. The perfume is still packaged. The flowers were bent sideways, as if they had been thrown in without consideration. And my envelope is still sealed. Red on black plastic. My entire offering was dumped. I just stood there and stared. It did not feel like fury. At first I felt heat rise up my neck and settle behind my eyes. Not enough to make you cry, but enough to make the world seem blurry. I looked around. Nobody was watching. No camera crew appeared to suggest it was a mistake, a joke, or that she intended to return it. It's just stillness and rubbish. I crouched down, reached inside, and took everything back. The scent, the flowers, and the note. I held them for a second, standing in the dimly lighted garage, unsure what I was doing. Maybe it was instinctive. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps I couldn't stand the image of my love decomposing under coffee grinds and eggshells. I walked back to my car holding the bag as if it were evidence from a crime scene. Sat there for a minute, engine turned off, letter on the passenger seat. What a ridiculous thing to write, I thought. Thank you for the years that you provided me. I understand it wasn't easy, but you did your best. I am proud of the woman you have become. I stared at the envelope. I then drove home. We didn't say goodbye. I did not text. I did not mention what I witnessed. I did not even slam the door. Just left softly. That night, I placed the note on my kitchen counter, next to the perfume and the wilting flowers. I stood there looking at them, hoping they'd explain why I continued trying, why I cared, and why I didn't see it coming. I didn't get much sleep, but I made one decision before the sun rose. And by the next morning, she was phoning non-stop. I used to believe that things change gradually, like erosion, and that you wouldn't notice it until the coastline was completely gone. But, looking back, I believe it happened faster than I allowed myself to admit. She met Jake when I was 10. He showed up for supper a few times before becoming a regular. One morning, I woke up to find his car in the driveway, his shoes in the hallway, and my mother wearing more makeup than normal. She smiled at him in a manner she hadn't for years. I recall thinking, oh. The baby arrived not long after. I was still 10. I did the math later, but I don't believe she expected me to at the time. In what seemed like a single breath, she and Jake had created an entire new family, new habits and rules. Where the home office formerly stood, there is now a nursery. A second fridge in the garage stocked with formula and organic baby food. A chore chart that no longer contained my name. Naturally, they were busy. Newborns are challenging. So I told myself it made sense when they neglected to inquire how my spelling exam went, didn't show up to my school musical, or left me waiting outside for karate practice in the rain. They were simply tired. It was a phase. I waited years for that period to pass. It did not. The baby grew. They adored him. He walked, and they applauded. He said "Dad," and they cried. When I brought home a school award, my mother responded, "That's great. Can you keep an eye on your brother while I take a nap?" It wasn't like she quit loving me overnight. It was as if she began to love someone else more loudly. And over time, the silence became terrible. By the time I left for college, the house no longer seemed like mine. Every wall featured photos of them, smiling at parks, matching holiday jammies, and my brother on Santa's knee. I was not in any of them. Not even a high school graduation photograph. Just erased. I recall walking past a framed canvas by the stairs that stated, "Family is everything," and thought, yeah, but not this one. But I continued trying. That's the part that still makes me embarrassed. I kept coming up on holidays. I kept purchasing birthday gifts. I assisted with expenses when I knew money was tight, even after I discovered they had taken a vacation and had just forgotten to tell it. I helped Jake find a job. I used my relationships to promote him for a client-facing function for which he lacked the necessary qualifications. He nailed his interview. When no one is fact-checking you, charisma can get you far. They never told anyone I helped. It was fine. I reminded myself that I wasn't doing it for credit. I was doing this to stay connected. To feel as though I was still theirs. Even after I acquired my own apartment and a decent job, I continued to visit, call, and contact my mother on odd Wednesdays to say, "Hope your day is going well." Sometimes she responded. She sometimes left me to read for days. But when she did answer, it was like oxygen. She texted me once after I helped her with some insurance papers saying, "You always come through. Thank you." I reread that message for weeks. I'm not proud of it, but if you've ever felt invisible to someone you used to be close to, you'll understand. That's why this year's brunch hurt so much. Because I had allowed myself to imagine that we had turned a corner. She confirmed the invitation with a smiley face in her text message. She thanked me after I assisted with her taxes. She did not beg for money. That month I felt things could be leveling out. Perhaps she was softening again. And for a little moment that morning, standing on her porch with flowers, a message, and the perfume Mom used to wear when I was younger, I felt like a son again. Then she smiled at my brother's joke about me being part family, and remained silent when Jake halted me mid-sentence, and moved the conversation to something about stock options. And when I delivered her the envelope, she hardly looked at it. The one I'd spent the night writing. The one in which I told her I loved her even when it hurt and felt one-sided. Then she tossed it away. I kept seeing it. The bag outside the garage, the folded and crumpled red mail, the unopened perfume box, and the half-crushed flowers under other trash. I took it all back out. Not to give it again. Not trying to make a point. I just couldn't bear leaving it there. Because those items were not just gifts. They were mine. They were me. And if she didn't want them, I was finished giving. My mother sent a message that same evening. "You departed in a strange mood. I hope that wasn't something we did." It almost had me laughing. But it didn't, because nothing about it was amusing. Not the years I spent shrinking myself to make room for the version of her life she preferred. Not the 1,000 little kindnesses I gave without asking. Not the memory of her tucking me in at 7 and saying, "You're my whole world." Only to grow up and discover that world had borders I was never allowed to cross again. They did not kick me out. They simply made sure I always felt like I was visiting someone else's family. So, I have not phoned them back. Because for the first time, I'm not attempting to be invited in. I'm trying to recall what it's like to belong to myself. I didn't sleep that night, not out of fury or sadness. There was something worse. Clarity. That dismal, cold clarity that sets in when you've stopped hoping. It's like standing in a house you thought you'd live in forever, only to discover that all of the walls are hollow. Around 2 a.m., I strolled into my kitchen and arranged the 3 gifts on the counter: perfume, flowers, and a letter. They appeared smaller and sadder today, like vestiges of a version of myself I no longer recognized. I stared at the envelope for a long time, wrinkled by the garbage bag, but still sealed. I did not open it. I did not need to. I understood exactly what it said. I opened my laptop. First the utilities. I logged into the accounts I'd been silently paying, gas, water and power, and set up final payments for the month. Then I erased my name from everything and closed the auto draft. Next, consider the tuition account. I had offered to assist pay for my brother's next semester. The transfer had not yet gone through. It was slated for the 15th. I canceled it. The confirmation email made it official. Then I opened a fresh email and addressed it to my mother. Subject: Re-Mother's Day. Body: just a heads up. I hid an envelope of cash inside the letter I handed you. It was intended to go for Zach's tuition. I thought you'd know what to do with it. I hope it did not get lost. I pressed send. Then I shut off my laptop, brewed tea that I did not drink, and sat in silence. Allowing her to deal with it felt better than yelling. The text began to arrive around 8:12 a.m., as expected. Wait, what do you mean by cash? I did not see any envelopes inside. Are you serious? Oh my God, how much was inside? I will look right immediately. Then there were the calls, which came in repeatedly. I watched as the screen lit up and then went dark. Voicemail after voicemail piled up like small panic episodes. I didn't respond. I allowed her to panic. Allow her to mentally retrace her steps. Allow her to wonder how much she had thrown away, literally and metaphorically. It wasn't true, of course. It was not. There was no cash. But she didn't realize it. And now, every time she thought about that garbage bag, she felt it. The potential that she had thrown away something important. Not just a gift, Not only money. Something that could have saved them. And now it's gone. Around midday, Jake finally texted me. "You are being childish? This is a significant issue. Could you please inform us whether you are lying?" I almost responded. "Consult the garbage truck." Instead, I turned my phone to silent and kept going. There was one final step to take. I checked my contacts and found the names of 3 people I'd personally introduced Jake to, people he currently works with. Client leads, vendors, and an old acquaintance who helped him score a side contract. I sent them all a version of the same message. "Hi. I just wanted to ask. From now on, please do not associate my name with Jake Hatcher. There is nothing dramatic. Just a personal barrier. I hope that made sense. There's no chatter. There are no details. Just enough to let folks feel it. Enough to make them question what had occurred behind the scenes. Enough to loosen several threads." I understood how that universe worked. Jake's entire employment rested on his reputation as a trustworthy guy with connections. And if I took a quiet step back, others would follow. By the end of the week, he had already lost a long-term recommendation. A contract was paused. Another client preferred to work directly with someone else. I didn't even have to move a finger, just one email and a few spaces, and the machine began to unwind itself. That night my phone vibrated again. "Have you found it? Kindly answer. I need to know. I assume I saw the bag you're referring to, but everything is now gone. Please tell me if this is real." I looked at her name on the screen for a second. I imagined responding with something harsh, abrupt, and final. But that would give her closure. So, I did nothing. Because this was not about vengeance. This was about having them feel the weight I'd been carrying since I was 10 years old. When I stopped being her entire world, and became a nuisance she couldn't wait to get rid of. This was about seeing them struggle in silence, finally realizing what I'd been saying for years. You can't continually erase someone and expect them to remain faithful. I realize I lied. I know the envelope never existed. But the pain, withdrawal, and abandonment were real. And for the first time in my life, they were unable to ignore it. My mother left me a voicemail that night. Her voice was shaky. She wasn't crying yet, but you could sense the desperation seeping through her calmness. "Kindly call me. Please. I did not know. I did not see it. I would never, if I had known what was within. Please call me, okay? I apologize. Please call." She didn't say "I love you." She didn't say "I'm sorry" like she meant it. Just panic, as if they'd misplaced something essential and couldn't remember where they put it. I still did not respond. My aunt texted me the next morning. Apparently my mother had called her crying. I told her I was being unkind, withholding, and tough. My aunt's message was simple. "If I were you, I wouldn't answer." That one really made me smile. Because for once, someone noticed it. I really saw it. How much I had given. How little I had received. How peacefully I had endured being nothing, until it became terrible. That weekend, I stowed the gifts away in my closet. I didn't want to keep them, but I also wasn't ready to throw them away. They were no longer reminders of her. They were reminders of me. The version of myself who persevered. And I wasn't trying anymore. I was finished. By Monday, she had stopped asking whether I was okay and began demanding answers. Her texts ranged from, "I'm sorry you're upset," to, "You need to stop this now." Jake emailed me directly, in a professional tone, as if we were negotiating a contract rather than untangling a decade of hidden animosity. He stated that my decision to disconnect was harming his career, and he hoped I would rethink for the sake of the family's stability. Translation: Your silence is costing me money. I didn't respond. Then Zach became involved. He wrote a voice note beginning, "Look, I know things were never perfect." And ending, "But seriously, you're ruining Mom's life over what? Some trash?" That one almost had me laughing. Some rubbish. That was the entire problem, wasn't it? They'd spent years treating me as if I were a piece of clutter to be boxed up and thrown in the attic to avoid ruining the aesthetic. Now that I was gone, they found themselves unable to function. I still didn't say anything. I did not gloat. I did not rant on social media. Did not send a final, "Here's everything you did wrong" message. I simply stopped playing the character. And this drove them nuts. By the end of the week, My mother arrived at my office. There's no warning. No call. Just walked in, as if on a mission. The receptionist buzzed me as if there was a fire. I came downstairs and saw her in the foyer, dressed in a white blazer and heels that clicked like punctuation points. She did not smile. "Can we talk?" she requested, already approaching the main doors. We stepped out. She didn't ask how I was, did not apologize. She went right to it. "You've humiliated this family," she retorted. "You've embarrassed your brother. Jake's job is hanging by a thread. Do you understand what that means?" "I understand exactly what that means," I replied quietly. She stared at me, her eyes intense. "You're doing this out of spite over one party?" I tilted my head. "Is that what you think?" She folded her arms. "We raised you. We paid for your clothes, your food, your school." I nodded slowly. "And I gave you a down payment on this house, covering your utility bills for 2 years. I offered to help with Zach's tuition. But sure, let's talk about the time you bought me sneakers in 5th grade. That broke something." Her jaw clenched. "That was your choice. We never asked you to help." "No," I replied. "You didn't ask, you just expected it. Expected me to pick up the slack when Jake forgot the mortgage was due. Expected me to understand when you skipped my birthday because Zach had a test. Expected me to stay quiet when you smiled while he called me half family, like I was an accident." She opened her mouth. "And you expected me to keep giving," he said. "Even after you threw away the only thing I had left to offer." That landed. She blinked. Something flickered in her face, perhaps remorse, or simply discomfort. Then she attempted one more play. "You're punishing the wrong person," she explained. "You're punishing your brother. He didn't throw anything away." I grinned, tight and exhausted. "You want to talk about the letter?" She paused. "I saw it, Mom," I replied. "In the trash bag next to the garage. I took it back." Her face transformed. The sharpness melted into something smaller and weaker. I didn't know," she replied. "I thought maybe you'd taken it with you. I wasn't sure." "You weren't sure?" I repeated. "I didn't mean to." "You never do." I did not yell. I did not raise my voice. I just let her hear it. Really hear it. "I'm not dropping the act just so you can feel better," I told you. "I'm not cleaning up the mess. And if Jake has to answer for how he got that job, that's not my problem anymore." She looked at me as if I'd grown a second head, as if the peaceful, trustworthy version of myself had been murdered in his sleep and replaced by someone unknown. Then she said it. "You're not just punishing Jake," she retorted. "You're punishing this family." I nodded. Then maybe this family should have stopped treating me like a stranger with a checkbook. I walked back inside. I didn't look back. 2 days later, Zach shared a hazy, dramatic story about people who abandon their family when times go tough. A few mutuals enjoyed it. One cousin contacted me individually. "Is that about you?" I responded. "Probably. And if it is, good." Jake, I heard, began hemorrhaging clients. People were questioning their partnerships. One of the vendors I introduced pulled their contract. He was asked to quit a month later. They termed it reorganization. Everyone realized it wasn't. Zach's tuition wasn't paid. He had to defer. I never said anything about it, not because I wanted to be unkind, but because silence was the only language they never learned to understand. A few weeks after the office scene, my mom, Jake, and Zach called me as a group. I didn't respond. They left a voicemail. "We just want to talk," she murmured, sweet and cautious, like someone attempting to reset a chessboard after flipping it. Zach murmured, "Sorry, I guess." Jake did not speak. Then my mother added, "You made your point. So what now? You're disowning us?" I replayed the message twice. Once to hear what they said, and once to hear what they didn't. Nobody said I'm sorry like they meant it. Nobody complained we didn't treat you well. They simply wanted me back in position. Return to the role. But I was done playing it. So I did not respond. I blocked that number. 3 months later, I was promoted. We moved into a better flat. I began having small dinners with folks who genuinely wanted to hear what I had to say. Then, one night, my mom sent me a message. "Saw you moved. Hope you're doing well." If you ever want to talk, I'm here. She didn't say what she did or didn't. She didn't ask how I was. She only wanted to see if the door was open. It was not. I made tea, sat on my balcony, and gazed out at the city lights. There's no noise, there is no guilt, no performance, just silent. And in that silence, I felt freer than I had in years. Sometimes I wonder if I was overreacting. Maybe I should have just let it go. Smiled despite the sting. I picked a better time to set boundaries. I choose peace over quiet. But then I remembered the garage. I recall standing there with my unopened gifts, still damp from the garbage bag. I recall writing the letter with shaky hands, attempting to appear vulnerable in front of someone who threw it away without hesitation. And I know I didn't burn any bridges. I just stopped carrying the weight of one that was torn down years ago. I'm not proud of lying about the money. But I am not ashamed of it either. Because for once, they had to deal with uncertainty, discomfort, and the potential that what they threw away was more important than they thought. So what are your thoughts? Was I overly harsh? Was it finally time to say enough? Would you have done the same thing, or gone away quietly? Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode. Karen demands VIP table claiming to know the owner, yet I'm the owner, and she was left crying with a $4,000 bill as after my revenge. Karen bursts into the restaurant, screaming that she knows the owner and demands that we give her and her group of friends the VIP table reserved for celebrities. The problem is that I own the restaurant and don't know who this lady is. However, I decided to play along and see what occurred. During dinner, one of the girls asked me if I thought my life was useless because I worked as a waiter. That was then I realized that all bets were out, and I was determined to extract my revenge. Here's what I did. This happened near Christmas and New Year's. My grandparents immigrated to Canada from Italy in the 1970s and opened a restaurant. When they died, my parents took over the restaurant, which they expanded and improved throughout the decades. I've been working in the restaurant since I was 15. As my parents became older, they retired and became snowbirds, spending their winters in Florida. They sold the restaurant to me a few years ago, but they kept a small portion of the stock as a side income in addition to their savings. As soon as I got control, I modernized the old house. I restored the eatery, changed the logo, and contacted local and national publications about placing advertisements. I invited food critics, bloggers, and vloggers. It was slow at first, and I worried that the loan I took out to do all of this was the worst mistake I'd ever made, that I'd damaged 3 generations of a family business. But it soon started to work. A local semi-famous YouTuber featured us in one of his videos, encouraging more people to visit and review us. Even on a Monday, we rapidly saw 5 to 10 times the usual volume of activity. We became a popular place for huge parties, and celebrities frequently stopped by on particular occasions. I even invited a few high-profile clients to come and cook for our guests. This cost a fortune, but we were fully stocked for the holidays. People had to make reservations in July to get a table in December. It took years to reach this stage. When things become busy, I don't just sit in the back office, I'm on the floor doing whatever needs to be done, whether it's greeting customers, bussing tables, or mopping floors. On nights with high-profile guests or events, I don a jacket and take command. One night, 6 women walked in. 5 of them appeared to be in their early 20s, with the leader possibly in her mid-20s. My best guess was that she was the elder sister of one of the females or an older sorority sister to new college students. I was greeting them at the door, and as they approached, Queen Bee Karen was telling the baby Karens how great this restaurant is, how good the food is, and how there might even be celebrities there. When she approached me, she said she needed a table for 6. It was my reply. Of course, can I get the name on the reservation? She stared at me. She replied, "Oh, I didn't make one, but that's fine. The owner is a personal friend of mine. He said he always leaves 1 or 2 tables open for special guests, and we can have one tonight." This is true for many well-known eateries, and I've recently done it as well. But I had no idea who this woman was, and she had never mentioned any of this to me. I realized she was attempting to get in without a reservation, but she had chosen the worst person to do so with. I informed her, "I'm sorry, but we can't seat anyone without a reservation. As you can see, we have no seats available." I didn't want to go full out and say, "I'm the owner, and we have never spoken before, so I never promised you anything," but I also didn't want to disgrace her in front of the other girls she was with at the moment. She then told one of the other girls to snap a photo of me. She stated that she would communicate with the owner to ensure that I was either cleaning toilets or fired before the end of the week. The other girls behind her agreed, shouting things like, "Yeah, kiss your minimum wage job goodbye." I wasn't sure if they were in on it with her or if they really thought she knew the owner. Queen Bee Karen then stated, "Look, you can either give us a table or I will make your life extremely difficult. This is not worth losing your job." She kept pointing, attempting to demean me, and then saying things like, "Obviously, you aren't anyone here, because if you were, you would know who I am and never try to tell me anything other than yes or of course." She was constantly attempting to push me down and steal the table. At this point, it had been a difficult day for me, and I had 3 options. Number 1, I could inform her that I am the owner and confront her with all of this. Number 2, I could simply hand her the table and let it go. Or, finally, I could show Queen Bee Karen and her minions a lesson. I chose option 3. I smiled at her and replied, "Of course, ma'am, please follow me." I handed her one of the 3 tables we keep open in case a celebrity wanders in, which happens occasionally. I responded, "I apologize for everything, and you are right, it would be simpler just to give you the table." I also informed her that the first 3 rounds of drinks would be complimentary. I sat them down and personally served them. While they were sitting there, I said, "We need one of your credit cards and IDs just to keep on file, and we'll return them to you before you leave." Queen Karen gave me her card and told the baby Karen minions, "Tonight is on me." I took their orders, gave them their complimentary beverages, and warned them that due to our busy schedule tonight, the food may be delayed. The females were solely concerned about the free drinks. They ordered 3 rounds and still hadn't received their food. They ultimately called and requested me to look into it, all while giving me the worst attitude since they arrived. I assured them I'd look into it, but also asked if they needed more drinks. They ordered 2 more rounds. They were sloshed by the time the appetizers arrived, having spent most of the night drinking on an empty stomach and nibbling salads. As the dinner arrived, additional drinks were ordered. What these females didn't realize was that they were sitting at our VIP table, which generally costs a few $1,000s, but I didn't charge them. Except for the first 3 rounds, I charged them for the highly expensive cocktails they consumed throughout the evening. Furthermore, the table they were sitting at was VIP, as previously indicated, hence the menus differed. Prices are not listed on these menus. This is a restaurant industry trade secret. They also served higher-end menu items including white truffle, black caviar dinners, and specially imported West Coast oysters, among others. At one point during the night, I honestly started to wonder what I was doing. I was scared I was going too far with these poor girls. They might not know any better. But there were moments during the night that cheered me, such as when one of the baby Karens asked whether I thought my life was useless because all I ever did was serve. Also, one of the other employees told me that they were plotting ways to mess with me, believing that they could do so whenever they wanted and that I would always give them a table. I heard them say, "He's cute, but I wouldn't date a waiter like that. He's such a pushover." There were more comments like that throughout the night, so I continued their life lesson. By the end of the night, each female had racked up a bill of $500 to $600. I delivered Queen Karen a bill for $4,232.23, which included tax and tip. I've never seen someone sober up this quickly. She went from laughing and giggling with her friends to nearly crying. She quickly summoned me over and inquired whether this was a joke. I accepted the bill, looked it over, and apologized. "I will get you the correct bill amount." Again, she appeared absolutely relieved, as if she had received someone else's bill, and called me a effing idiot, before continuing to chat to her friends. When I returned to give her the correct bill, she flipped out again. It was simply a question. "Is there something wrong with this bill that you did not order?" She and the girls were startled and went over every line of the bill, even the first few lines, which described their original 3 rounds as complimentary. They then took out their phones and went over everything 100 times, totaling everything up. Queen Bee, apparently shocked, just replied, "1 second, I need to use the restroom." Part of me thought she'd dine and dash and leave baby Karens with the bill, but I quietly reminded her that we had her ID and credit card, without being too obvious. I was concerned that she would run out of money. 10 minutes later, she comes with new makeup, plainly crying, and tells me about how bad the food was, how terrible the drinks were, and so on, demanding that I at the very least cut the price in half. She went on to add that the baby Karens would help, despite the fact that she had already told them that the night was hers. Then, as if a bright bulb went off in her head, she brought up her purported relationship with the owner once more, as if it would give me extra impetus to cut the price in half. I grinned as I told her, "No, simply no, I cannot change the bill." She pulls out her phone and shows me a string of text messages from someone named after my restaurant, followed by the term owner. I immediately understood what she had been doing in the bathroom, most likely changing one of the other Karen minions' contact names and deleting previous texts to build this new script. I went through the messages and clicked on the contact information before telling her, "That's not the owner's cell phone number." Her reaction was, "He has multiple phones for business, of course. You don't know all of his phone numbers." I said, "How about this? If we call him and he says it's okay to take 50% off the bill, then I'll do it." Her response was to start raving and screaming, which grabbed the attention of the few remaining customers, and I realized it was time to finish this. I told her in a less sympathetic tone, "Cut the crap, little girl. You don't know the owner. You have never been here before, and if you keep shouting, I will call the cops." Her tone shifted as she tried to justify herself as best she could. My response to her pathetic retort was, "My grandpa founded this restaurant. My family has been conducting this business for centuries. I've been working here for almost my entire life. I am the sole proprietor of this restaurant, and I have never seen you, heard of you, or promised anything to a stranger I've never met before tonight." The little Karens were frozen and unsure how to respond. Queen Bee was in tears. I said, "Now I've given you the table you requested? One of these specially reserved tables for high-end clients that I didn't charge you for, as well as 3 rounds of complimentary cocktails. If you don't pay your bill, I'll phone the cops and give them your ID." Karen signed the bill in tears, and the tiny Karens grabbed into their wallets and handed her the cash they had, which was probably a couple $100, with the promise to reimburse her more. 2 days later, an agitated man enters my restaurant and insists that one of my bartenders speak with me. I was in the back office working, so he had to wait about a half hour. She was with him, but she kept her head down. I took them both to my office and showed him clips from the security cameras, which had especially good audio because they were in the VIP section. We needed to keep accurate records in that area due to previous unrelated mishaps. I showed him most of it, their remarks, orders, and everything. After everything was said and done, he hurried out with her, shouting at her the whole time. I haven't seen or heard from any of them since, but the original bill I handed them, which did not contain the $120 oysters, is framed on my desk. As a side note, I did not lose as much money at the table and during 3 rounds of drinks as you might assume. I didn't lose anything since I didn't expect to gain anything at all. The expense of the lunch and accompanying drinks more than made up for the first 3 rounds losses. So, now that you've learned everything, am I the jerk? Aside from the money, trying to bully their way into grabbing a seat, and avoiding paying the bill, the Karen's perspective on the world was probably the most astounding aspect of the incident. That one statement about the OP's original poster's ineptitude as a waiter really jumped out. It appeared that OP was about to abandon his entire vengeance scheme, but one of the baby Karens questioned him if he felt his life was pointless because all he had become was a waitress. That has to be one of the most ridiculously entitled perspectives we've ever seen on this channel. It may not be as thrilling or insane as some of the other stories, but the fact that she perceives the world in this manner is plain sick. There is nothing wrong with having a job, regardless of your income. This happens frequently with jobs like janitors, and I loathe it when people think they are superior just because they do not work in those roles. There's nothing wrong with becoming a janitor. I don't understand the thinking, but in this case, she not only feels that way, but she also wants to humiliate him for having a difficult job, such as being a waiter, or so she thinks he is doing. Another thing. I'm glad this tale ended on a relatively positive note, with the father seeking to reverse the situation but becoming more upset with his daughter than the restaurant owner. The only thing that frightened me was that the restaurant was recording audio from the people sitting at that table. I'd probably avoid going to a restaurant if I knew my conversations were being recorded. Anyway, I'm pleased everything worked out for the OP, but please tell me how you would have handled the situation if it had been your business and these were your customers. Was the OP a jerk, and why?